All right, I'm going to give you a reason to be happy. We all need more of those today. I mean, it is not just the fact that the Pope is American, which I find hilarious. Grew up in the same hometown as my dad. They were in high school at the same time, which is all of that incredibly funny to me. We now have a Pope that has apparently eaten deep dish pizza before, and that is not something that I really would have imagined was possible until this moment. So shout out to that dude. Congrats on the white smoke or whatever. Hope the vape had a nice flavor. Okay. This is a feel-good story. And I'm going to present you with two not feel-good stories, but basically a reason to root for each Champions League final team. But that is just me expanding upon talking about this man. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry. Francesco Serby. Okay, he's the guy, obviously, that scored the all-important goal for Inter. It was his first European goal ever. It was like his first goal of the year for Inter. He is a defensive player, obviously, that was thrown forward late in the match and put together a brilliant finish. And he is also, as I am about to prove to you, thanks to the beauty of Wikipedia, he is also somebody that is not young. He is 37 years old. And he has had a winding, meandering career where for much of it he was not considered that important or that big of a player. And there is a story behind it that I did not know that really colored in, because he seemed, I mean, everybody's very emotional, right? But he just, 37 years old, he's a guy that should not still be here. But his story, it makes sense why he's there. So thank you to 433 for actually putting together this kind of Instagram post that I can walk you through here. He was at AC Milan in 2012. He'd just kind of gotten the big move from Chievo Verona, right? This is your moment. You're stepping up into the big time. And then his whole life falls apart. Okay, his dad dies. And this is the quote. After my dad died, it was as if I'd forgotten how to play or why I was playing. I started drinking, and believe me, I'd drink anything. So his dad dies while he's playing at AC Milan. He slips into depression, starts drinking all over the place. Obviously not a conducive thing when you're playing as a high-level professional athlete. So it's not a surprise that he flames out at AC Milan, and very quickly they're kind of searching for a new place for him to go. He ends up at Genoa, then on loan at Chievo Verona, and then eventually bounces all the way to Sassuolo. After his departure, he joined Sassuolo, but just as he was preparing for a fresh start, he was dealt another devastating blow. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer during the preseason. So this Francesco Serby, just for those people that were not aware, is one of those guys that had reached the peak of the game. And you think about 2012, that's 13 years ago. So at the age of 24, he steps into AC Milan, hoping to begin a long career as at least a role player at AC Milan. His dad dies. He becomes an alcoholic, self-admittedly a horrible alcoholic, right? Goes into depression, slips around a couple of clubs, lands at Sassuolo because obviously this is a guy that a year ago had signed for AC Milan. You can only fall through the game so quickly. And then he gets testicular cancer on top of that. So this dude is not only, this dude is a survivor of substance abuse. This dude is a survivor of cancer, but weirdly, he says that the testicular cancer helped kind of bring him back. He elaborates a little bit later in this. It might seem like a terrible paradox, but the cancer saved me. I had something new to fight against, a limit to overcome. It was as if I got to start life all over again and saw the world in a way I'd completely forgotten. And you can almost see the visual difference, obviously, that's presented here. Okay, he has the surgery, removes the tumor, and then he failed an anti-doping test. So you're talking about challenging. But when you failed the anti-doping test, it's due to the irregular hormone levels caused by the return of the cancer. So they remove the tumor, the cancer comes back. But he has this new thing to fight against, and instead of letting it kind of bury the rest of him, I would imagine this is kind of the big fork in the road in his life, like the biggest fork. Because you're already depressed, you're alcoholic, and then somebody walks up and goes, hey man, that lump on your balls, you're not super lucky and have a third testicle. That's actually testicular cancer. Congratulations, right? Somebody walks up to him and says that, you can turn left and just get crushed out of the game, because we know how quickly you can fall out of the game once people realize that you're not quite in it anymore. Once it, in about a year and a half, you can really fall a ways down. And he'd already fallen. So, I mean, if you start to suck for another year and not care and not show up and be, not taking care of yourself and whatever, you can fall. If you've already fallen a lot, you can keep falling. And he picked the other. He turned right, used it to focus his mind, get after trying to be right. The cancer comes back, and he was able to obviously overcome that cancer as well. He spent 5 years at Sassuolo, made over 150 appearances, and he became a European champion. He was on the Euros team, Francesco Serby. If you recognize the name. Now, obviously, he wasn't like one of the key players on the team, but he was there. He has 34 caps for Italy, all of which are after the depression, the alcoholism, right, in the cancer. He moved to Lazio. He was there for 5 years, and he's been on Inter for basically the last 3, meaning that, including his loan that he went on from Lazio, he has been a part of both of Inter's teams that have now made the Champions League final over the last couple of years. And that, to me, makes him one of the most inspiring, interesting personal backstories in the world of football right now. Because there just are not a lot of other footballers that I feel like have gone through that much of a ringer and come all the way back. I mean, who gets a move to Inter at 34? He moved to Inter. He moved up. No offense to Lazio. Right? He went from Lazio to the best team in Italy over the last couple of years at 34. And now he's 37 and clearly playing as well as ever. Because Manchester United wishes they had a guy that could finish off a shooting chance the way he finished that off in a Champions League semifinal. And it was not just his incredible offensive output. There was also this video that I'm really just finding an excuse to show of a Serby defending Pedri, which, first, this is a flop. I could totally get distracted, and I might just get distracted, talking about how disgusting this is from Pedri. He's trying to show that he's being held, and then he just falls over, right? I just hate, I was always a more physical athlete. I liked kind of bumping up against people, using my physicality. I am a rather sturdy dude, right? Particularly in the lower half. I'm built like a tree stump. I've got thighs for days, calves on top of them, and I have got a fat ass with a pH, okay? So I can always get low. Center of gravity, played a lot of basketball in my day. I'm a sturdy dude. Hard to knock off my center of gravity. So I'm in the Serby camp here. I am running into people. Not fouling them, right? But, contact, physical contact. Pedri, just tries to throw himself down. And Serby says, oh, if you want to be down, you can just stay there. 1, 2, and Pedri just, he could, if his life depended on it, stand up in this situation. And Serby, at least in the first one's kind of trying to put his hands in his back. In the second one, I really do think he shoves him a little bit there. This is old school defending. And this is the type of defending you would expect from somebody born in the 1980s in Italy. And I'm honestly afraid, now aside from Serby's story and obviously showing his importance in unsettling or at least getting on the nerves of Barcelona's arguably most important player, at least right now, love Lamine Yamal, but Pedri's been brilliant. And if you ask anybody, and I have, that has watched Barcelona every match this year, they'll say Pedri has been the most important player for the team. And you've got this 37-year-old Italian brute putting a little marinara sauce on him, trying to slow him down. And it ends up working. But, 3 notes here. 1, hate the flopping. 2, you need to be able to defend like this. Always remember Zlatan telling the center backs on the teams he played for to stop wearing gloves because it makes him look less intimidating. A hugely important part of being a defender, right, is to be intimidating, to be imposing, to try and get them off their game. One of the best defenders in basketball history, right, Dennis Rodman. Okay, Dennis Rodman used to grab dudes in the junk just to throw them off. He'd just be finger popping assholes out there while the ref wasn't looking just to throw the guy off, just to mess with him. He was like a scientist of psychological torture for the people that he was defending. Now, you shouldn't be doing that. That is an extreme example, and obviously Dennis Rodman is the type of person that is an extreme example in a lot of things. If you happen to know who that is. If you don't, Google him. It's an interesting ride. He's like an ambassador to North Korea. Don't do that. But this sort of stuff, the little bumps, a little trip, a little flick in the ear, right? That sort of stuff, it is a time-honored tradition. If anybody has played sports, And I was fortunate, I played a lot of sports growing up, and I loved it. Anytime you're playing sports, there's always people that are trying all that little shit. And a Serby's doing some of this, and then he tries to pick it back up. And then he reaches down and like pulls him back up to try and get him to stand up. And to the referee's credit, he's telling Pedri to get back up too, which I think is the appropriate reaction here. Because we can't be calling fouls for this sort of stuff. This is just proper physical intimidation defending. Now, if he had stood over him and then shoved him back onto the ground again, then sure, yeah, we'd call a foul. Right? But I don't think there's anything over the top in this that would warrant it. And it shows, honestly, to me, this video, more so than the goal, demonstrates to me how Francesco Serby has been able to build such a long career. He is somebody that understands how to play defense at the top level. And somebody at 37 years old who's just not going to be at the top of the line physically anymore has got to be able to win all the battles in the margins with what they're able to do between the years. And so I'm incredibly happy for Francesco Serby and impressed by what he's been able to do. And if Inter wins the Champions League, it'd be a final crowning achievement. Maybe not final. Who knows? He'll probably play for another 10 years after I said that. In a career that I am embarrassed to admit I knew very little about until very recently. And I appreciate the world kind of educating me on that. But the reason that maybe you'd want to root for PSG instead, it's just more of a sad reason, bit of a trigger warning on it. But it has to do with Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique won the Champions League with Barcelona. This is a picture of him and his daughter celebrating that and placing the flag on the field and, you know, doing all sorts of Champions League things. His daughter is no longer with us. And so there would be it would be, regardless of your thoughts about PSG, as I'm sure many of you have many, if PSG wins, you can take solace in the fact, even if you're a born and bred hater, that Luis Enrique would be getting some sort of therapeutic full circle moment to honor his daughter. And so there are public personal tragedies that have occurred on both sides that would make for a really touching story no matter who wins the Champions League. And considering that the feeds are going to be full of predictions and this and that, it's just good to know that, you know, nice things will be happening too. It's not the end of the world if either one of these teams wins. And obviously all the best to Luis Enrique as he continues to deal with the sort of thing that you have to deal with the rest of your life, right? And he's done a very good job managing his team, but he'll have to find a way to get around Francesco Serby, which has not proven that easy recently.